What I wanted to do was to make a war film that happened to have a predator in it.
Light him up!
The whole geek community is waiting for you can actually answer this
You're
question.
the only one who can answer. We gotta know, man.
God.
Damn.
Well, Shane, it's a pleasure to meet you. I've been a huge fan of yours and your work for years.
Oh, well, that's very kind.
And I really thought The Predator was a blast. And I thought one of the things that really sort of surprised me was I thought it was really deliciously 80s in a way. And I mean that in a good way, because I think there's so many television shows and movies now that are just regurgitating 80s imagery and characters and just, you know, surviving on nostalgia of the audience. But in terms of this movie, I felt it was because it was so lean and mean. It wasn't like 2 hours, 30 minutes burdened by 10 needless subplots, and you had those colorful characters, and it wasn't overly stylized. It was all those things that I love about the great blockbusters of the 80s. Was that deliberate? Am I just crazy?
You may be crazy, but you're right in this case. It was a choice to, you know, there's a certain kind of what I would call the numbing effect of the CG deluge, which, you know, in the latter years, so many shots seem so much like a video game. And I like the use of CG. I like especially combining it in a very effective way with practical effects so that it sort of seamlessly, you know, intertwines with it. What I wanted to do was to make a war film that happened to have a predator in it, which means you don't shoot it with one of these spinny video game over and under, you know, down through the pipe and out the other end kind of cameras. Rather, you shoot reverse shot, that if he fires here, you're over here to see where the bullet goes, and you shoot it as though that's what you had to work with, as though you didn't have a CG arsenal at your disposal. And I think that gives it somewhat of a more 80s feel. There is CG in it, but we shot it more like an 80s movie.
Yeah, I love that the Predator is real, that it's actually a guy in a suit. That tangibility is really great.
Thank you. Yeah.
But speaking of the 80s, I've always actually wanted to ask you this, because I've always felt you had a hand in sort of the birth of the modern blockbuster, that era there in the 80s. But I thought there was much more diversity to the blockbusters of that era. They could be small budget, mid-budget, large budget, PG, PG-13, R-rated. And of course, they're getting like a resurgence at the moment. But I feel like so many movies now are PG-13, streamlined, and have to be huge budget. What's changed?
Well, there's two models, I think, working at present. One is the Netflix model, where you don't have to be four quadrant. You don't have to please every single person with every one film that you shoot. So if there's one that the demographic is 30-year-old, you say, okay, that's fine, because we offer an array here at Netflix. So if this one only appeals to this one, that's fine, because we'll have something over here to appeal to the others. The blockbuster at the corporate or studio level, unfortunately, is more and more aimed at, well, this better appeal to everybody. If we're going to spend this much money, we have to make sure that we, you know, draw in as many elements as we can. And in a sad way, that means, you know, sort of leaving out some edge every once in a while. That's why I was so happy to get an R rating for The Predator, because PG, I think, would have meant sanding off too many of the edges that make an 80s film an 80s film. And the pressure to attract a four-quadrant audience is somewhat lessened when you know that under the age of 17, they're theoretically not supposed to be seeing it, you know.
Yeah. And of course, it also gives the dialogue much more of an edge as well.
Oh, yeah, well, you get downright salty with
exactly,
with the dialogue.
Which is great.
Hey, Baxley, if your mom's vagina were a video game, it'd be rated E for everyone.
And also, there were some delicious new spins and some classic lines. And I was thinking, was that a difficult balancing act, you know, referencing the original and some of the things that made the original great, but also blazing your own new paths? Was that a balancing act that was in your mind?
No, because I don't really blaze anything. I do what feels organic. And to me, once we decided on a sort of leaner, meaner approach to the guys, that we would try to make a relatable group of people who were very good at what they do, but equally importantly had forgotten that, and so had to reacquire their sense of self and their abilities. Once we knew that, then the guys just sort of come together, and I sort of do what I do, and I get the right actors together, and they do what they do. And we threw in a wonderful little boy, and a woman played beautifully by Olivia Munn, and all these elements, I think, combined in this sort of very 80s way to create this sort of half Spielbergian and half, you know, J. Lee Thompson kind of gang. And that was the fun for me. I mean, it's not blazing anything. It's just what I do, man, and what they do so well.
Doc, is that like the mail?
Are they hunting each other now?
Well, it's so nice to meet you guys. I think the movie was a blast.
Oh, cool.
Thanks.
And especially because of the characters and like the interaction between them. And you had guys had such a great chemistry. And was that like there from the start as soon as you guys got shook together?
We were very lucky that we all got along really well. You know, on movies, you know, it's not that people don't get along, but it's for us to get along that well, like in between takes, a lot of times people like to go to their trailers and do their own thing. We would all just hang out, and we had this cast tent, and we'd hang out and just talk about life and just different stuff, and that really helped with our dynamic. And you know, you have a lot, and then there's some people. Like, I've been friends with Keegan-Michael Key for years, everybody else just kind of worked.
Yeah, he's a master improviser, so you know, he was really at the core of keeping stuff going, and you know, a lot of this was, you know. You can write, I guess, a comedy, but I think Shane's real talent is getting people together and
letting us do what we do.
Yeah, and then, you know, say this, and then that causes another reaction, and it's just kind of this domino effect.
That's cool, because I was interested in knowing, because he's such a word master, if he's a rigid filmmaker, being both the director and the writer on set.
That does happen a lot when you work with writers who then direct their own movies that they wrote. They get so precious, and they want you to say everything exact. Shane wasn't like that. You know, there was this one scene in the motel room that was written completely different, and I had like 3 pages of dialogue, and I said, I don't think that this feels real. I see what you're going for, and I get it, but what if I take away all of my lines and give them to the other guys and force them to have to explain to me and go, because if I wake up in a room and I'm looking at guys I don't know, I'm not going to just be really demanding. I'm going to be very careful, and they have to make me feel comfortable. And Shane was great about that. He was 100%. So I said, and he was really great about always being open to people's ideas and the actors' ideas, which doesn't happen a lot with just directors and then writer-directors, you know. But he was an actor before, so he understands that actors, you know, we can bring something to the film that is, you know, more worthwhile than just, you know, showing up and saying our lines.
Cool. I gotta ask you guys, because you're uniquely placed to answer the most important question in modern cinema history, and that's, of course, who would be the toughest to bring down? Is it the Wolverine or the Predator? Obviously, you didn't go up against Wolverine specifically, but you did fight X-Men, so I just gotta know, man.
Well, you know,
I fought both.
Yeah, and what do you think? What do you think? He's the only one who has fought both Wolverine and the Predator.
Be very careful with you if he sees this.
By the way, and you can really.
I got all the respect in the world for
you got
for
the
sure.
whole.
I'm a fan, by the way. Get the fuck out of my car.
Whoa.
The whole geek community is waiting for you can actually answer this
You're
question.
the only one who can answer. We gotta know, man.
God.
Damn. Well, I tell you one thing. I survive in this movie.
Oh. Wait, spoiler.
So you're actually the toughest of the 3.
Is he allowed to tell this? Yeah, maybe that's it. It's really who survives against him.
Yeah.
Didn't Logan take it? He's out too. So guess that you would be who would win in a fight? The Predator, Boyd, and Wolverine.
Oh god.
Boyd.
This is the ultimate spoiler.
Yeah, my ego just actually became an ego.
You grew out like an ego on top of your ego? Hey, you didn't write the script. You just showed up and acted in it.
Yeah.
Light him up! We may die. We're still here. So come and get us, motherfucker.
Well, I only have one question left, unfortunately. So, Shane, I'm actually wondering if I could just show you a brief video. It's only like 30 seconds, but it's...
Okay.
You can see it here. It's a mashup of course, of Beverly Hills and Predator, and you're in it as well. Because I was rewatching and I was thinking, why did they shoot those scenes where you guys smiling into the camera? Do you remember that?
I have seen this, absolutely.
You have seen this?
Yeah.
I'm honored.
No, this got... Yeah, it was the notion of a 70s kind of Love Boat or sitcom feeling.
But for Predator, that just seems so...
But you had those shots at the end of the first Predator where they deliberately had everyone kind of...
Exactly, but I was wondering, what was the genesis of that?
It was a curtain call.
Okay, yeah.
The idea was to do an old-fashioned curtain call.
Yeah. Do you remember what John McTiernan told you? You know, to get you to smile into the the camera.
There was actually a visual effects guy standing off camera by the name of Al DeSaro.
Okay.
Al was doing funny faces and making me laugh.